with the latest on the wildfires. This video showing a brush fire that sparked Saturday along I-5 in Grants Pass, prompting level 3 evacuations nearby. It comes as firefighters have made progress in containing some of the larger fires. But as Jake Holter explains, crews have been dealing with what's being called a dangerous situation that could threaten that progress.
The bench fire has burned more than 67,000 acres in and around Warm Springs, and while firefighters seem to have gotten more of a handle on it, Saturday's weather has created a, quote, particularly dangerous situation.
What that means is that you have your standard red flag warning that we've had for decades, but there was really never any level above that for the red flag warnings that really stand out. The idea here is something that you wouldn't expect to see every year. You might not see another one for another 3 or 5 years on average. So that's kind of the benchmark and the threshold that we're looking at.
National Weather Service incident meteorologist trainee Dylan Flynn has been monitoring the fire weather here in Oregon and explains what prompted them to issue the particularly dangerous situation.
It's really wind driven. So we look at this cold front coming in. We're expecting strong winds initially out of the west, 20 miles per hour, gusts to 30, and those will gradually shift more out of the north as the evening goes on.
Combined with the hot and dry fire conditions, the winds make for extreme fire weather, increasing the likelihood of fire spread and new fire starts.
The biggest concern when we do a particularly dangerous situation is for firefighter safety. That's our primary focus, is that when you're fighting the fires, these conditions can be dangerous and even deadly for firefighters on the line.
So Flynn and the other meteorologists briefed the firefighters going out on the line Saturday on what they could expect.
And we explained exactly what the timing of the winds would be, the expected direction, so everybody was aware. And then once the firefighters go out there, they just maintain their typical safety rules, which is that post lookouts or monitoring the weather from an exposed location where they can communicate, have good communication with base, have a good escape route, and identified safety zones that they can fall back to if those conditions become dangerous.
Thankfully, Flynn says these conditions should let up overnight.
And then as we get into Sunday morning, sun comes up, it's actually going to be quite cold, right? We have a cold front, so you could expect it would be cold behind it. And that helps. That brings up the humidity, which makes it a little harder for the fire to burn. So we get a little bit of a break on Sunday and Monday.
Jake Holter, KGW News.
And a moment of relief as crews battled the Roe Creek Complex fire. Firefighters say this home in the Mill Creek Road area near Prineville is still standing only because of the owner's preparations before they evacuated. Fire crews say the two-story home was being threatened by a fast-moving grass fire with flames already on the deck. Crews noticed the owner had left behind a water tender, pump, and a hose, which allowed them to attack that blaze quickly. They say since the homeowner took time to remove flammable materials around the home, they were able to knock back the fire.
This is a great example of what happens when we have a couple things working in our favor. When we have a home that has defensible space, where it has vegetation cleared away from the house that moderates fire behavior as it gets closer to it. So we just probably had embers on the deck rather than a full flame front engaging on the house.
And firefighters say it highlights the importance of being aware and prepared when you live in a fire-prone area. In Washington, Governor Bob Ferguson has declared a statewide wildfire emergency as more than 250,000 acres have burned across the state. In the Spokane area, firefighting managers have combined several fires into what's now being called the Spokane Complex Fire. Level 3 evacuations are in effect around the city, and flames have reportedly destroyed hundreds of buildings already. State resources have already been mobilized to fight the fire. A horrific case in Idaho. At least 3 people are dead and 7 more injured after a shooting that began inside the In-N-Out restaurant. This happened in Twin Falls, roughly 130 miles southeast of Boise. This video shows people running from the restaurant after shots were fired. Police say the shooter is dead and there is no ongoing threat to the community.
The suspected shooter in this incident is deceased. He was nearby on the scene there, and we are working to try to ascertain his identity and the motivations behind that. We'll be able to figure that out in the next coming days.
It is still unclear how many people were injured. The police chief says the federal government will help with the investigation. A contentious Friday night at the Moda Center. We have told you about the controversies surrounding the Indiana Fever's Sophie Cunningham and her comments about trans athletes. Now we are hearing from a Fire season ticket holder who says they were spit on and had a slur yelled at them during that game. John Adams has their story.
Until Friday night, Shauna Gordon and their wife enjoyed every second of being a Portland Fire season ticket holder.
We knew going into this game that there was a lot of charged energy, specifically around Sophie Cunningham's comments.
Before the game, the couple took their usual seats in section 107, excited to see the Fire take on the Indiana Fever. Gordon says they made a personal choice not to stand during the national anthem, something they do every game. Gordon tells us on this night, a man sitting behind them saw that and started yelling.
He says, "Stand up." And I'm like, obviously not going to stand up because some man is telling me to do so. And then I start feeling something in the back of my neck. And I'm like, okay, what? And I turn and I look over at him and he goes, "Yeah, stand up, stand up."
A few moments later, flames were shot from near the basket as part of pregame introductions. That's when Gordon tells us the man said this.
And at that point, that's when he yelled, "Set trans on fire."
Feeling threatened, Gordon alerted security as the man continued to yell and make gestures at them.
And that's when my wife, as she's standing behind me, says, "Shauna, that's not water, that is spit. You can see the phlegm."
Gordon shared this photo of their jacket. After multiple conversations with workers, they tell us Moda staff eventually found the couple new seats in another section. They say the man eluded security for much of the first quarter before being escorted out of the arena. 24 hours later, Gordon is still shaken and believes Moda Center staff dropped the ball in handling the situation. They also question whether they feel comfortable returning to Fire games or renewing their season tickets.
And I'm a queer non-binary person of color living in Portland, Oregon. My existence, my personal choices that I made infuriated someone to the point where they did something that was so degrading to me, to spit on me, to yell something so violent. That needs to be addressed.
A Portland police spokesperson tells us they are investigating the incident, saying the Bias Crimes Unit will be doing follow-up.
And we have reached out to the Portland Fire Organization and have not heard back.